So when you're dealing with exponents and you have something with a negative sign like this, there's two things that we have to pay attention to. Whether the answer would be negative or positive because of the number of times you're doing it, and whether it's in a parentheses or not. So for this one, for example, negative 3 to the third power, you're saying that this whole entire thing is getting multiplied by one another. So it's negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. If we have an even number of numbers that we're multiplying, the answer is going to be positive. In this case, it's odd. So odd, the answer would always be negative if it's 3 negatives or 5 negatives being multiplied together. So this one is 3 times 3 is 9 times 3 is 27, and my answer is negative because I have an odd number of numbers that I'm multiplying. If it was even, like negative 3 to the fourth power, like this, then I would have negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. That's 81. And then I have an even number of numbers that I'm multiplying. So my answer would be positive. So for this, because the negative is outside of the parentheses, no matter how many this is, it's always going to be negative. If it's like this, it's always going to be negative as well. So for example, this one, negative 3 with inside the parentheses, negative 3 with outside, and negative 3 with no parentheses. These are three completely separate things. So we have to take each one separately. So negative 3 to the fourth power, you would make it be negative 3, negative 3, negative 3, negative 3. This one, you would just make it, the only thing that's getting raised to the fourth power is the 3, and same for this. And in these two, the negative would follow to the answer. So for homework, you can do these ones and figure out which of these examples you would use to figure these out. Okay, so let's just review positive and negatives. When you're multiplying negative numbers, like negative 3 times negative 3, if you have an even number of negatives, the answer is going to be positive. If you have an odd number, it's going to be negative. And the same thing with division. So negative 12 divided by negative 4, you have an even number of negatives. So the answer is going to be a positive 3. If you had an odd number, like this is just one negative, then the answer is going to be negative 3. So if you had negative 8 divided by negative 8, the answer would be positive 1. Negative 8 divided by positive 8, it would be negative 1. Okay, so sometimes they might do something like this. Negative 20 divided by 5, it's still an odd number of negatives. This is going to follow. So it's like doing negative 20 divided by 5. So it would be negative 4. Do you have any questions about that, Hadley?
No, I do not.
Okay. Now, this one right here, I'll give you for homework. They're actually pretty fun to do if you have to have homework. So you're going to do the same exact thing that we did in multiplying or whatever you're going to do, but you're going to first plug in. So for example, number 22, they're going to do m times 3 plus p. And they tell you right here that m equals negative 4, n equals 3, and p equals negative 1. So your first step is going to figure out what you put where. So I know that m is negative 4 times 3 plus, and then I look at what p is, negative 1. And then PEMDAS tells me that I have to put my parentheses first. So 3 plus negative 1 equals 2. Biggest integer wins the sign. It's a 3. I have a 3 that's a positive and a 1 that's a negative, so I subtract. So my answer is going to be positive 2. And then I'm doing negative 4 times positive 2. So in this case, we're going to use, this is an odd number of negative signs, so my answer is going to be negative, and then 4 times 2 is 8.
Right.
So you're going to do these for homework, 13 to 24.
Okay, what page is that?
It is page 41, 13 to 24 all.
21.
41, 13 to 24 all.
Okay.
And then we're just going to do these ones. It's numbers 32. Ooh, can't see. 32 to 39. Actually, I didn't teach you that yet. Just 32 to 36. And then I'll do 37 right here with you. So for number 37, it's 3 times negative 4 cubed. And I remember that because it's in parentheses, basically what that means is 3 times negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. So first I'm going to deal with my exponents. Negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. And there's two things that I have to do. I have to first determine whether that's going to be negative or positive. So I have an odd number of numbers, so it's going to be negative. And now I have to figure out what it is. So on my calculator, which hopefully you'll be able to use, 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. And there's also another way you can do it. You can do 4, and then there's this button right here that tells you put in the base and then hit it and put in the exponent, and it will do it for you. So either way, negative 64 is my answer, but then I have to multiply that by 3. So then on my calculator, I do 64 times 3. It's 192. And I'm multiplying, and I have a negative and a positive. So that's an odd number of negative. So my answer is negative.
Okay.
Then our next one is negative 5 times negative 1 to the 4th power. So first I'm going to deal with my exponent. So it's negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1. I have an even number of numbers. So my answer is going to be positive. And then we know 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is positive 1. And I'm going to multiply that by negative 5. Now I do negative 5 times 1. I have an odd number of negative signs, so my answer is going to be negative. And then 5 times 1 is 5. So it looks like a lot, but if you break it down, it's pretty simple.
Okay.
Then this one is negative 5 squared, and it's times negative 3 to the 3rd power. So remember, if this is over here, the answer is going to be negative, always. So all that's getting squared is this right here. So 5 squared is 25, and I have to add in my negative sign. And then I have to do this next part, times 3 times 3 times 3. And because this is in the parentheses, the negative sign is going to get put inside of the parentheses as well. So we're going to forget about this for right now, and we're just going to do times 3 times 3 times 3. So 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. and I have an odd number of negative signs, so my answer is going to be negative 27. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to multiply that by negative 25. And so on my calculator, I'm going to do 25 times 27, and that equals 675. And I have an even number of negative signs, so my answer is going to be positive 675.